Welcome to Beyond the Postcard. On Monday, June 22nd, 1936, at exactly 3:30 p.m., a metal stamp slammed onto a 1-cent green Benjamin Franklin postage stamp in Wildwood, New Jersey. The postmark captured a moment of absolute normalcy. A woman named Emma sat down to write to her friend or relative, Mrs. George, Lebanon, Pennsylvania. She writes, "Hello, Mrs. George. I'm making chicken and waffles for dinner. I'm having a nice time. Love, Emma." Chicken and waffles, a classic Pennsylvania Dutch comfort meal. A nice time at the beach or traveling. It breathes the air of a quiet domestic American life midway through the Great Depression. What Emma chose to send Mrs. Smith wasn't a picture of a sunlit beach or a tranquil boardwalk. It was a picture of a wound, a colossal artificial canyon hacked into the earth. Looming over the crater is a skeletal iron colossus labeled M12, largest steam shovel in the world, stripping coal in the anthracite coal regions of Pennsylvania. Why would someone send an image of industrial devastation wrapped in a promise of a chicken dinner? To understand, we have to look before this card was ever printed, into a landscape of corporate greed, human misery, and an environmental nightmare that still burns today. Long before the machine on this postcard existed, the anthracite region of northeastern Pennsylvania, encompassing counties like Schuylkill, Luzerne, and Carbon, was the energy heart of America. Anthracite is black diamond coal, hard, pure, and high carbon. But in the 1800s and early 1900s, getting it out of the ground required digging deep, claustrophobic subterranean shafts. It was a kingdom of horrors. Thousands of men and children, known as the Breaker Boys, worked 10-hour days, sorting slate from the coal with bare, bleeding hands. If a boy slipped, he was crushed instantly by the gears. If a miner survived the day, he faced the constant threat of cave-ins, methane gas explosions, or the slow, choking death of black lung disease. By the early 1900s, the coal barons faced a massive problem: the miners' union. Miners were striking, demanding livable wages and safety. Deep shaft mining required too much human labor. Human labor meant human resistance. The corporate solution? Strip mining. Enter the colossal. Strip mining meant peeling away the skin of the earth to get to the coal underneath. No more underground shafts, no more costly timber supports, no more relying on the thousands of rebellious miners. To do this, the coal companies commissioned gods of steel. The machine pictured here the Bucyrus-Erie or Marion steam shovel. These Leviathans weighed hundreds of tons. Their buckets could scoop up entire cars worth of earth in a single bite. But look closer at what this postcard proudly displays as an industrial marvel. The horror of a steam shovel wasn't just that it replaced human labor, leaving entire towns impoverished during the Depression. It was the absolute, irreversible death of the topography. To strip this coal mine, entire mountains were dynamited. Topsoil, ancient forests, and ecosystems were treated as overburdened garbage to be cast aside. The landscape was turned into a toxic wasteland of acid mine drainage. Rainwater mixed with sulfur-exposed rocks turned streams into bright orange, highly acidic rivers of literal poison, killing all aquatic life for generations. This postcard represents the corporate rape of the wilderness as a tourist attraction. It was mass-marketed gaslighting. When the giant corporate steam shovels moved during the 1930s, Thousands of traditional miners were cast out into starvation. Desperate, these men turned to bootleg mining, clandestinely digging illegal, completely unsupported holes into the hillsides at night, often just a few hundred yards from where these massive corporate shovels operated. They dug with pickaxes and hand shovels under the cover of pitch darkness. Because they had no timber to support the roofs, these bootleg holes were literal dirt coffins. The horror that occurred in these woods are the stuff of local nightmares. It wasn't uncommon for a man to go out into the dark to dig coal for his family, only for the earth to silently swallow him alive. Because the mining was illegal, if a cave-in occurred, his partners often couldn't call for help without facing prison. They would simply shovel dirt back into the hole, leaving their friend buried forever in an unmarked grave, and walk away. To this day, hikers in the anthracite woods occasionally stumble upon sudden, deep depressions in the earth, sunken pits where a desperate man took his final, suffocating breath beneath the forest floor. Look again at the front of Emma's postcard. The scale is intentionally deceptive, making the machine look like a heroic pioneer. But to the families living in the valley patch towns below, these multi-ton iron Leviathans were treated like literal mechanical demons. They operated 24 hours a day, screaming through the night. The sound was described by locals as a rhythmic, metallic screeching, followed by a thud that shook the very foundations of nearby homes, shattering windows and cracking plaster walls while families slept. But the true terror was the sinking lands. As these machines gouged out millions of tons of earth, they drastically altered the water tables that destabilized the subterranean crust. Without warning, the floors of nearby homes would violently split open. Entire backyards, outhouses, and even bedrooms were known to suddenly plummet into the subterranean abyss. There are haunting local accounts of parents rushing into their children's bedrooms after hearing a crash, only to find the floor completely gone, replaced by a yawning, pitch-black void leading straight down into the abandoned, gas-filled cavities below. The machines didn't just strip the earth, they consumed the peace of the living. There is a final lingering supernatural shadow attached to artifacts like this. The coal regions of Pennsylvania are widely considered by paranormal investigators to be among the most heavily haunted places in North America. In towns like Eckley, Ashland, and Centralia, the sheer volume of sudden violent deaths left an indelible psychic imprint on the landscape. Local folklore is plagued by the tales of the White Lady of the Patch Towns, the apparitions of weeping mothers wandering the edges of the strip pits, forever looking for their sons who never came home from the mines. When Emma writes, "I'm having a nice time," she was completely insulated from the heavy spiritual dread of the region. Even today, visitors who explore the skeletal remains of the old iron breakers report hearing the phantom clinking of slate being sorted and the distinct disembodied coughing of the breaker boys echoing through the structures that have been abandoned for nearly a century. The postcard is bright and cheerful, but it is a thin paper mask covering a landscape of ghosts. Just a few miles away from where these massive shovels operated, a small mining town called Centralia sat quietly. In 1962, an illegal dump fire accidentally ignited an exposed vein of the anthracite coal, the exact type of coal being mined on this postcard. That fire spread deep into the abandoned labyrinth of strip mines and deep shafts. It could never be put out. The earth grew hot enough to melt boots. Lethal carbon monoxide gas seeped into the basements. Today, Centralia is a ghost town, its streets cracked and smoking. The fire ignited by the remnants of this industry is still burning beneath the earth right now. And it is expected to burn for the next 250 years. Let's look at the physical anatomy of this artifact. Look at the bottom right corner of the postcard's back. You can see a tiny vertical code, CT. CT. CT, art color tone, registration U.S. Patent Office. This tells us exactly who made this card. It was printed by the Kurt Taish Company, based in Chicago, Illinois. Kurt Taish was the king of the linen postcard era. Then we look at this production number, 5-82248. According to the official Kurt Taish internal dating archives, the prefix 5H indicates a specific year of production of 1935. This card was brand new when Emma bought it. The linen texture isn't actually fabric. It's an embossed pattern on paper with a high rag content. This texture allowed the Kurt Taish Company to use highly saturated, chemically intense inks. The distributor of the card is printed on the left margin. Lynn H. Boyer, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Wildwood, New Jersey. Boyer was a massive regional postcard distributor who sold these souvenirs at rest stops, hotels, and beach boardwalks. Emma likely picked up this card of Pennsylvania's industrial heartland while vacationing at the New Jersey shore, or while driving back through the state. And what about the recipient? We're going to call her Mrs. Smith of Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Lebanon was a booming steel and iron town just south of the coal regions. The Smiths likely lived in a world surrounded by the very smoke and industry depicted on the front of this card. To them, a giant steam shovel wasn't a horrific eyesore. It was just the background noise of their survival. What happened after Emma sent this card in the summer of 1936? The aggressive strip mining shown on the front continued unabated through World War II. The coal companies took the money, dug their craters, and when the anthracite companies collapsed in the late 1950s, they simply walked away. They left behind a Swiss cheese landscape of unstoppable earth, exposed coal veins, and open pits. Emma's letter remains frozen in time. She made her chicken and waffles on Sunday, June 21st, 1936. She had a nice time, but her casual words sit forever on the back of an environmental and human tragedy. A postcard celebrating the very machines that dug the grave of a region, leaving a toxic, burning legacy that America is still paying for in blood, smoke, and ash. I hope you enjoyed this walk back in time beyond the postcard.